Welcome to an electrifying journey where raw injustice transforms into high-octane action. This is Judge Belittles' black man in court. 7 minutes later, karma hits when he arrests her. Picture a courtroom where disdain fuels defiance, and a single act of prejudice spirals into an explosive battle for justice. In a world where every bullet fired echoes the fight against corruption, one man's determination challenges a corrupt system, turning karma into a relentless force that can't be ignored. Before we dive into this adrenaline-charged saga, I'd love to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Drop your answers in the comments below. Let's connect and show how this global fight for justice unites us all. And if you're excited to join us on this gripping adventure, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories that challenge the system and ignite your passion for truth. Get ready, the journey into relentless retribution starts now. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. Judge Deborah Langley adjusted her glasses and fixed her cold blue eyes on the man standing before her. "Mr. Carter, do you think this courtroom is a joke?" She snapped, her voice sharp as a knife. Darius Carter, a tall, broad-shouldered black man in a crisp navy blue suit, stood with his hands clasped in front of him. He remained calm, though his jaw clenched at the condescending tone in her voice. "No, Your Honor," he said evenly. Judge Langley smirked. "You come in here, wasting taxpayer dollars, expecting sympathy from this court. Let me tell you something, sir, men like you always think they're above the law." Darius inhaled deeply, keeping his anger in check. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was, being treated like a criminal. "Your Honor, if I may, you may not," she cut him off, slamming her gavel. "I don't have time for your nonsense." Darius glanced at his lawyer, Michelle Raines, who leaned in and whispered, "Stay calm. She's baiting you." Judge Langley leaned back in her chair, exuding smug authority. "It's men like you who think they can get away with anything. Always playing the victim. Always making excuses." The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder. Darius clenched his fists but forced himself to remain composed. He had dealt with racism before. This was nothing new. "Your Honor," Michelle interjected. "My client has provided clear evidence proving his innocence." "The surveillance footage," Langley rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me, Ms. Raines. Do you really think a few seconds of blurry video will convince me? No. I trust law enforcement over a man like this." Darius stiffened. "A man like this." The words were laced with venom. The bailiff, Officer Ryan Maddox, smirked from his post near the judge's bench. He had been waiting for this moment, enjoying every second of Darius's humiliation. Langley continued. "I should throw you in jail for wasting my time." Darius inhaled sharply. This was beyond injustice. It was blatant prejudice. Then, suddenly, a deafening explosion rattled the courtroom. The windows shattered, and screams filled the air. The wooden doors burst open, and 3 masked gunmen stormed in, automatic rifles raised. "Everybody down." One of them bellowed. Chaos erupted. The bailiff reached for his gun, but a shot rang out, bang, and he crumpled to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Judge Langley let out a shriek as she ducked behind her bench. Darius immediately sprang into action, grabbing Michelle and pulling her down behind a row of seats. His military instincts kicked in. Years of training in the Marine Corps took over. The lead gunman, dressed in all black, scanned the room. "Nobody move unless you want a bullet in your skull." The second gunman grabbed a terrified court clerk and yanked her to her feet. "Where's the judge?" Langley cowered, eyes wide with terror. Darius whispered to Michelle, "We need to move. Now." She nodded, fear flashing in her eyes. A few feet away, one of the gunmen aimed at a security officer. "Hands up." The officer hesitated. A single shot dropped him instantly. Screams filled the air. The attackers weren't bluffing. Darius knew they were running out of time. He scanned the room. He needed a weapon, anything. His eyes landed on the fallen bailiff's gun. He turned to Michelle. "Stay here." Before she could protest, he lunged forward, rolling across the floor as bullets whizzed past him. He grabbed the gun, flicked off the safety, and took cover behind an overturned table. The gunman hadn't noticed him yet. His mind raced. He had been in war zones before. He knew how to handle this. The leader of the attackers barked, "Judge Langley, get out here before we start shooting hostages." Langley whimpered, frozen in fear. Darius tightened his grip on the gun. He needed a plan. one of the gunmen stepped closer, his rifle sweeping the room. Darius took a deep breath, aimed, and the shot hit the gunman in the shoulder, sending him staggering backward. Instantly, the room exploded into gunfire. The remaining attackers turned their weapons toward Darius, unloading a hail of bullets. He dove for cover as wood splintered around him. "Get him!" the leader shouted. Darius rolled, fired twice, bang. Bang, hitting the second gunman in the leg. The man howled in pain, dropping his rifle. The last gunman turned to Judge Langley. "Move, now." She scrambled to her feet, hands trembling. Darius cursed under his breath. He had to stop them. He popped up, took aim, and the leader ducked just in time, the bullet missing by inches. The two remaining gunmen grabbed Langley and hauled her toward the door. Darius had a split second to act. He sprinted forward, dodging bullets, and fired, bang, hitting one of them in the back. The leader shoved Langley aside and turned his rifle toward Darius. Time slowed. Darius dove, just as the gunman pulled the trigger. The bullet grazed his arm, pain flaring through his body. He hit the ground hard, rolling onto his back. The attacker stood over him, gun aimed at his head. "Any last words?" The gunman sneered. Darius gritted his teeth. He wasn't done yet. The moment the gunman's finger twitched on the trigger, Darius kicked upward, knocking the weapon aside. A shot fired into the ceiling. Darius twisted, grabbing the man's wrist and wrenching it. The attacker cried out. Darius seized his moment. He swung his elbow into the man's jaw, sending him staggering back. The gun slipped from his hands. Darius didn't hesitate. He grabbed the rifle, spun it around, and the last gunman hit the ground. Motionless, silence fell over the courtroom. Darius exhaled sharply, his heart pounding. Judge Langley stared at him, trembling. Darius slowly stood, blood dripping from his arm. He locked eyes with Langley, and for the first time since this trial began, she looked at him with something other than disdain. She looked at him with fear. The smell of gunpowder lingered in the air as Darius stood over the fallen attackers. His breathing was steady, but adrenaline surged through his veins. He quickly scanned the room. Bodies sprawled across the courtroom floor, some dead, others groaning in pain. Judge Langley, still trembling, clutched the wooden edge of her bench, her face pale. The doors burst open again. This time, uniformed officers stormed in, weapons drawn. "Freeze!" one of them shouted, aiming his rifle at Darius. Darius slowly raised his hands. "I'm not your enemy." The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man with a buzz cut, stepped forward. "Darius Carter." Darius nodded. The officer lowered his weapon slightly. "We got a call about gunmen taking the courtroom." "What the hell happened here?" Darius exhaled. "3 armed men stormed in. I took them down." The officer glanced around at the chaos. "You took them down alone?" Before Darius could answer, Judge Langley snapped, "Arrest him." The entire room froze. The officer turned to Langley, confused. "Ma'am?" Langley pointed a shaking finger at Darius. "I don't know what game he's playing, but I want him in cuffs now." Darius clenched his jaw. "You can't be serious," Michelle said, stepping in front of Darius. "He just saved your life." Langley's eyes burned with fury. "This man should have never had a gun in my courtroom." Darius took a slow breath. "I used the bailiff's weapon." "The same bailiff your gunman killed." Langley scoffed. "Gunman? How do we even know he wasn't part of this? Maybe this was all some elaborate plan." "That's enough." The officer barked, silencing her. He turned back to Darius. "Sir, we need to take your statement." "But I'm not arresting you." Langley's face twisted with rage. "Then you're a damn fool." The officer's jaw tightened, but he ignored her. Another officer approached. "Sir, we have 1 gunman still alive. We need paramedics." Darius turned toward the man he had shot in the leg. He was still groaning, blood seeping onto the marble floor. The lead officer nodded. "Get him into custody." Darius stepped forward. "I want to question him." Langley scoffed. "Oh, so now you're an investigator." Darius ignored her. He crouched beside the wounded attacker, whose face twisted in pain. "Who sent you?" Darius asked, his voice low and firm. The man spat blood onto the floor. "Go to hell." Darius smirked. "Been there. Didn't like it." He grabbed the man's injured leg and pressed down. The attacker screamed, "Darius." Michelle hissed. "You can't." "Who?" Sent. You. Darius repeated, applying more pressure. The man gasped. You have no idea who you're messing with. Darius leaned in. Then enlighten me. The attacker chuckled through gritted teeth. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Before Darius could push further, the paramedics rushed in, shoving him aside. The lead officer pulled him back. That's enough. We'll handle the interrogation. Darius stepped away, fists clenched. Langley crossed her arms. See? He's violent. A menace. This is exactly why I don't trust men like him. Darius turned slowly, his gaze locking onto her. Men like me? Langley smirked. Oh, don't act innocent. I see your type all the time. Think you're above the law because you wore a uniform once? You're nothing but a thug in a suit. A heavy silence settled over the room. Darius took a step closer. You think I'm a thug? His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fury. You think I fight just to fight? No. I fight to protect people like you. Langley laughed. Spare me the hero speech. Darius stared at her for a long moment. You're gonna regret this. Langley raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat? Darius shook his head. No. Just karma. The tension was broken by a call over the police radio. We need backup. Shots fired at City Hall. Every officer in the room stiffened. The lead officer grabbed his radio. What's the situation? The voice on the other end was frantic. Multiple armed suspects. Officers down. We need reinforcements now. Darius and Michelle exchanged looks. The officer turned to his men. Let's move. The officers rushed out. Leaving behind a few to secure the crime scene, Darius turned to Michelle. Something's not right. She nodded. It's too much of a coincidence. This attack, and now City Hall. Langley rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Not everything is a conspiracy, Mr. Carter. But Darius wasn't listening. He turned to the remaining officer. I need a weapon. The officer hesitated. Sir, you're a civilian. Darius cut him off. Do I look like a civilian? The officer glanced at the bodies on the floor, then sighed. Fine. But you're coming with us as backup, not as a vigilante. Darius took the offered sidearm and checked the magazine. Fully loaded, Michelle grabbed his arm. Be careful. Darius gave her a small nod before following the officers out. As they rushed to their squad cars, he glanced back at the courthouse. Judge Langley stood by the doorway, arms crossed, shaking her head. She had no idea what was coming, and neither did Darius. The police cruisers roared down the street, sirens wailing as they approached City Hall. Darius sat in the front passenger seat of one of the squad cars, gripping the sidearm the officer had handed him. The radio chatter was frantic, officers pinned down, multiple hostiles, and casualties mounting. Darius turned to the lead officer, Sergeant Blake. What's the layout of City Hall? Blake kept his eyes on the road. Main entrance leads to the lobby, wide open. Multiple offices and 2 stairwells leading to the upper levels. The mayor's office is on the top floor. Darius nodded, piecing together a plan. Are hostages involved? Unknown. Darius clenched his jaw. That made things complicated. As they rounded the final corner, City Hall came into view. Gunfire flashed from the front steps, where a group of officers had taken cover behind patrol cars. A dozen gunmen in tactical gear were returning fire from behind concrete pillars, pinning the police down. Damn it, Blake muttered. We need to get those officers out of the kill zone. Darius scanned the battlefield. I see a blind spot on the left. I can flank them. Blake shot him a look. You're a civilian. I can't authorize that. Darius smirked. Then don't authorize it. Just don't shoot me by mistake. Before Blake could protest, Darius was already out of the car. He sprinted low, hugging the side of a nearby building as bullets zipped past. He reached the far end of the lot, pressing his back against the wall. He peeked out. 2 gunmen were huddled behind a pillar, focused on the officers ahead. Darius moved fast. He stepped out, raised his pistol, and fired twice. The first gunman dropped instantly. The second spun around, bringing his rifle up, but Darius was faster. He fired a third shot, hitting the man's center mass. He collapsed against the pillar. The police saw their chance. Move up. Blake shouted. The officers surged forward, laying down cover fire as they advanced. The gunmen scrambled to adjust, but their formation was broken. Darius pushed ahead, weaving between parked cars. He spotted another attacker taking cover near the entrance, before the man could react. Darius fired, striking him in the leg. The gunman screamed and fell. The remaining attackers realized they were losing the advantage. Fall back inside. One of them yelled. The surviving gunman retreated into City Hall, disappearing through the massive glass doors. Blake and his team regrouped near the entrance. Darius joined them, reloading his weapon. They're setting up an ambush inside. Blake nodded. We breach, fast and hard. No hesitation. Darius stepped forward. Let me take point. Blake hesitated. I don't like sending a civilian in first. Darius smirked. I stopped being a civilian the moment those guys opened fire. Blake considered for a moment, then gave a sharp nod. Fine. Your point. But don't get yourself killed. Darius moved toward the entrance, gun raised. The shattered glass crunched under his boots as he stepped inside. The lobby was eerily quiet. The high ceiling cast long shadows from the flickering emergency lights. Papers were scattered across the marble floor, and overturned furniture showed signs of a struggle. Darius motioned for the officers to spread out, then, movement, a flash of metal in the far hallway. Darius ducked just as a burst of gunfire tore through the air. He rolled behind a fallen desk, returning fire. Blake and his men charged in, opening up on the hallway. The gunmen fired wildly, but their shots were rushed. Darius picked one off with a clean headshot. While Blake's men gunned down another, the last remaining attacker bolted for the stairwell. Darius didn't hesitate. He broke into a sprint, chasing after him. The gunmen took the stairs two at a time, trying to lose Darius in the dimly lit stairwell. But Darius was faster. He lunged forward, grabbing the man's collar and yanking him back. They tumbled onto the landing, struggling for control. The gunman drew a knife. Darius caught his wrist before the blade could sink into his side. They wrestled, muscles straining, the knife hovering inches from Darius's throat. With a roar, Darius twisted the attacker's wrist, forcing the blade out of his grip. He slammed the man's head against the wall, once. Twice, until his body went limp. Darius stepped back, breathing hard. Blake and the others caught up. Nice work, Blake said. But we're not done. Darius nodded. Where's the mayor? Last we heard, he was in his office. Darius turned toward the top floor. Then that's where we're going. They moved up cautiously, clearing each floor as they advanced. As they neared the mayor's office, the hallway lights flickered. Then they heard it, muffled voices behind the door. Darius signaled for silence. He pressed his ear against the door, listening. A gruff voice spoke. The judge gave us the wrong intel. We were supposed to grab the target here, not deal with this mess. Darius's eyes narrowed. The judge, another voice responded. She's getting impatient. She wants the mayor out of the way so she can push her agenda through. Blake's eyes widened. Judge Langley is behind this? Darius whispered, looks like it. Blake cursed under his breath. That means she set up the courthouse attack too. Darius nodded. It all made sense now. Langley had been playing them from the start. He turned back to the door. Let's end this. Blake counted down silently, 3, 2, 1, then kicked the door open. Gunfire erupted instantly. Darius dove for cover, rolling behind an overturned table. The attackers inside fired wildly, bullets shredding the walls. Darius popped up, squeezing off 2 quick shots. One enemy dropped. Blake and his team stormed in, taking down the rest in a brutal firefight. When the smoke cleared, the mayor was slumped in his chair, bound and gagged but alive. Blake rushed forward, cutting him free. Sir, are you hurt? The mayor coughed. I'm fine. He looked at Darius. Who the hell are you? Darius smirked. Just a guy who doesn't like bad cops. The mayor's face darkened. Then you'll love what I have to tell you. Darius leaned in. The judge is dirtier than you think. Darius locked eyes with the mayor. What do you mean the judge is dirtier than I think? The mayor massaged his wrists where the ropes had cut into his skin. Judge Langley isn't just corrupt, she's running an entire operation behind the scenes. She's using her position to cover for criminals, launder money, and silence anyone who gets in her way. Blake's expression darkened. And she ordered this attack. The mayor nodded. She needed me out of the way. I refused to approve her request to defund an internal affairs investigation into police misconduct. She panicked. Darius took a deep breath, his hands tightening around the grip of his pistol. Then it's time we pay her a visit. Blake turned to his officers. We're bringing her in. Now. One of the officers frowned. But she's a sitting judge. We need a warrant. The mayor stepped forward. I'll sign the damn warrant myself. Let's go. Blake nodded, grabbing his radio. Dispatch, this is Sergeant Blake. We have confirmed intelligence that Judge Langley is orchestrating criminal activities. We need units en route to the courthouse immediately. A voice crackled back. Copy that, units are on the way. Darius checked his ammo. We're going in hot. She won't come quietly. Blake gestured to his team. Let's move. The convoy of police vehicles tore through the city, sirens wailing. Darius sat in the passenger seat of the lead car. His mind racing. Langley had humiliated him in court earlier that day, but now, the tables had turned, they were about to take her down. Blake's radio buzzed. We've got movement at the courthouse. Langley's trying to leave. Blake gritted his teeth. Not on our watch. The courthouse came into view, a grand, towering building, now swarmed with officers. Squad cars screeched to a stop, doors flying open as officers poured out, weapons drawn. Darius spotted Langley near the front steps, flanked by two bodyguards. She saw them coming and stiffened. Blake stormed forward. Judge Langley. You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and ordering an armed attack on City Hall. Langley's face twisted in rage. You have no authority to arrest me. The mayor stepped forward, holding up the signed warrant. Actually, we do. Langley's jaw clenched. You fools don't understand what you're doing. Darius stepped in. No, Langley. You don't understand. It's over. She scoffed. You think I don't have contingency plans? She turned to her bodyguards. Kill them. The guards pulled their weapons, everything exploded into chaos, gunfire erupted. Officers ducked behind cover, returning fire as Langley's men opened up with automatic weapons. Darius moved fast, diving behind a police cruiser as bullets ricocheted off the pavement. He peeked over the hood. Spotting one of the guards reloading, he took his shot. The guard collapsed. Blake took down the second with a well-placed shot to the chest. Langley bolted for the courthouse doors. Darius took off after her. Blake, cover me. Blake and his team laid down suppressing fire as Darius sprinted through the hail of bullets, dodging and weaving. Langley shoved open the doors, disappearing inside. Darius burst in after her. The courthouse was dimly lit, the halls eerily silent apart from his own footsteps. Then, movement. A shadow flickered near the judge's chambers. Darius followed, gun raised. He reached the door and kicked it open. Langley stood behind her desk, breathing hard. You really think you've won? She spat. Darius leveled his pistol at her. It's over, Langley. She sneered. You're a fool. Then she reached under her desk. Darius fired. The bullet struck the desk. Just as Langley yanked a shotgun free, she swung it up. Darius lunged. The blast tore through the air, shattering the window behind him. Darius grabbed the barrel, forcing it upward as Langley struggled, teeth bared. She kicked at him, trying to break free. Darius twisted the weapon, wrenching it from her grasp. Langley stumbled back, gasping. Blake and his team stormed in, weapons drawn. Darius tossed the shotgun aside. It's over. Langley's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her hands curled into fists, then she smiled. You think this ends with me? She whispered. Blake stepped forward. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Langley didn't move. Then, an explosion rocked the courthouse. Darius staggered as the floor trembled. Blake grabbed his radio. What the hell was that? A voice crackled back. A bomb. Basement level. Darius's stomach dropped. Langley planned this. She smirked. Tick-tock, gentlemen. Darius lunged, grabbing her by the collar. Where's the detonator? She just laughed. Blake grabbed Darius's arm. We need to move, now. The courthouse trembled again, another explosion, Darius cursed, they had minutes before the whole building came down. He turned to Blake. Get everyone out. Blake hesitated. What about you? Darius locked eyes with Langley. I'm not leaving without her. Blake nodded grimly. Be careful. He and his team rushed out, shouting evacuation orders. Darius turned back to Langley. Time's up, Judge. The sky above the courthouse was thick with smoke, sirens wailing through the chaos. Officers swarmed the rooftop, securing the last of Judge Langley's mercenaries. Helicopters hovered overhead, their searchlights cutting through the night. Darius took a deep breath, the adrenaline still surging through his veins. He looked down at Langley, her once proud face now twisted with rage and disbelief. You think this is over? She spat, struggling against the cuffs. Blake yanked her to her feet. It is for you. She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You don't get it, do you? I had insurance. The moment I was captured, a failsafe activated. Darius narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Langley smirked, nodding toward the street below. Suddenly, a series of coordinated explosions erupted across the city. Fireballs lit up the skyline as police precincts, courthouses, and government buildings went up in flames. Blake's radio crackled with frantic voices. Multiple bombings. Officers down. We need backup. Blake's grip on Langley tightened. What the hell did you do? Langley tilted her head. Just a reminder that I'm not the only one in power. Darius clenched his jaw. You planted bombs across the city. Langley's eyes gleamed. I told you, I always have an escape plan. Blake grabbed his radio. Get every available unit out there. We need bomb squads, emergency response. Before he could finish, a new voice interrupted over the channel. Attention all officers, urgent priority. Armed assailants have taken over City Hall. Hostages confirmed. Darius and Blake exchanged a look. Langley smiled. And now, gentlemen, you get to choose. Do you stop the terrorists, or do you protect me? Darius wasted no time. Blake, secure her. I'm going after the hostages. Blake nodded. Go. We'll make sure she doesn't go anywhere. Darius sprinted toward the rooftop exit, reloading as he moved. City Hall. 10 minutes later, the building was under siege. Gunmen in tactical gear had barricaded the entrances, holding city officials at gunpoint. A dozen hostages, including the mayor's family, were huddled together inside the grand chamber. Darius arrived on the scene, meeting up with SWAT teams already setting up a breach. What do we know? He asked the SWAT commander. Multiple hostiles. Well trained. They executed 2 officers on site. They're demanding Langley's release. Darius shook his head. Not happening. The commander sighed. That's what I thought. We need a way in. Darius glanced at the blueprints on the team's tablet. There's an access tunnel below the east wing. If we move fast, we can get inside undetected. The SWAT leader nodded. We'll take the front. You flank from below. Darius moved quickly, slipping through the underground service tunnels. The damp air smelled of rust and decay, but he pushed forward, emerging in a storage room just outside the grand chamber. Through a crack in the door, he saw the terrorists pacing, rifles in hand. The leader, a tall man in a black balaclava, was speaking into a radio. You have 15 minutes to release Langley, or we start killing hostages. Darius checked his watch. Not on my watch, he signaled the SWAT team. I'm in position. Copy. On your mark. Darius took a deep breath, then, SWAT blew the front doors open, a flashbang detonating in the center of the room. Darius burst through the side entrance, gun raised. The terrorists reacted fast. The leader grabbed the mayor's wife, pressing a gun to her temple. Back off, or she dies. Darius kept his aim steady. Let her go. The man sneered. Drop your weapon. Darius didn't hesitate. He fired. A single bullet struck the terrorist's hand, forcing him to drop his gun. The mayor's wife broke free, scrambling toward safety. Gunfire erupted from all sides. Darius rolled behind a pillar as bullets whizzed past. He popped up, firing 3 precise shots. 2 gunmen dropped instantly. SWAT stormed in, taking down the remaining attackers. The leader, clutching his bleeding hand, tried to escape through a back exit. Darius sprinted after him. The man bolted down a stairwell, yanking open a door leading to the underground parking garage. Darius followed, footsteps echoing in the empty space. The terrorist grabbed a waiting motorcycle and revved the engine. Not happening. Darius drew his gun and fired. The bullet shattered the rear tire. The bike skidded out of control, sending the terrorist tumbling across the pavement. Darius rushed forward, pinning the man down. "Who sent you?" The man coughed, blood staining his lips. "Langley's insurance." Darius tightened his grip. "She's done. And so are you." Sirens wailed as backup arrived. SWAT officers swarmed the garage, securing the suspect. Darius exhaled, standing over the unconscious terrorist. The hostages were safe. The city was in chaos, but they had won this battle. Still, something nagged at him. Langley had been too calm. This wasn't over, not yet. Back at the courthouse, Blake was securing Langley for transport. Officers were loading her into an armored van, triple-checking her restraints. She sat quietly, smiling to herself. Blake frowned. "Something funny?" Langley's eyes gleamed. "You forgot one thing, detective." Blake raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" She leaned in. "You never asked who I was really working for." At that moment, his radio crackled. "Damn it. We've got a prison break, maximum security wing." Blake's stomach dropped. Who escaped? The answer sent a chill through his spine. Someone worse than Langley. Langley's smile widened. Blake cursed. This was far from over. The sky above the courthouse was thick with smoke, sirens wailing through the chaos. Officers swarmed the rooftop, securing the last of Judge Langley's mercenaries. Helicopters hovered overhead, their searchlights cutting through the night. Darius took a deep breath, the adrenaline still surging through his veins. He looked down at Langley, her once proud face now twisted with rage and disbelief. "You think this is over?" She spat, struggling against the cuffs. Blake yanked her to her feet. "It is for you." She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You don't get it, do you? I had insurance. The moment I was captured, a failsafe activated." Darius narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Langley smirked, nodding toward the street below. Suddenly, a series of coordinated explosions erupted across the city. Fireballs lit up the skyline as police precincts, courthouses, and government buildings went up in flames. Blake's radio crackled with frantic voices. Multiple bombings. "Officers down. We need backup." Blake's grip on Langley tightened. "What the hell did you do?" Langley tilted her head. "Just a reminder that I'm not the only one in power." Darius clenched his jaw. "You planted bombs across the city." Langley's eyes gleamed. "I told you, I always have an escape plan." Blake grabbed his radio. "Get every available unit out there. We need bomb squads, emergency response." Before he could finish, a new voice interrupted over the channel. "Attention all officers, urgent priority. Armed assailants have taken over City Hall. Hostages confirmed." Darius and Blake exchanged a look. Langley smiled. "And now, gentlemen, you get to choose. Do you stop the terrorists, or do you protect me?" Darius wasted no time. "Blake, secure her. I'm going after the hostages." Blake nodded. "Go. We'll make sure she doesn't go anywhere." Darius sprinted toward the rooftop exit, reloading as he moved. City Hall. 10 minutes later, the building was under siege. Gunmen in tactical gear had barricaded the entrances, holding city officials at gunpoint. A dozen hostages, including the mayor's family, were huddled together inside the grand chamber. Darius arrived on the scene, meeting up with SWAT teams already setting up a breach. "What do we know?" he asked the SWAT commander. "Multiple hostiles. Well trained. They executed 2 officers on site. They're demanding Langley's release." Darius shook his head. "Not happening." The commander sighed. "That's what I thought. We need a way in." Darius glanced at the blueprints on the team's tablet. "There's an access tunnel below the east wing. If we move fast, we can get inside undetected." The SWAT leader nodded. "We'll take the front. You flank from below." Darius moved quickly, slipping through the underground service tunnels. The damp air smelled of rust and decay, but he pushed forward, emerging in a storage room just outside the grand chamber. Through a crack in the door, he saw the terrorists pacing, rifles in hand. The leader, a tall man in a black balaclava, was speaking into a radio. "You have 15 minutes to release Langley, or we start killing hostages." Darius checked his watch. "Not on my watch," he signaled the SWAT team. "I'm in position." "Copy. On your mark." Darius took a deep breath, then, boom, SWAT blew the front doors open, a flashbang detonating in the center of the room. Darius burst through the side entrance, gun raised. The terrorists reacted fast. The leader grabbed the mayor's wife, pressing a gun to her temple. "Back off, or she dies." Darius kept his aim steady. "Let her go." The man sneered. "Drop your weapon." Darius didn't hesitate. He fired. A single bullet struck the terrorist's hand, forcing him to drop his gun. The mayor's wife broke free, scrambling toward safety. Gunfire erupted from all sides. Darius rolled behind a pillar as bullets whizzed past. He popped up, firing 3 precise shots. 2 gunmen dropped instantly. SWAT stormed in, taking down the remaining attackers. The leader, clutching his bleeding hand, tried to escape through a back exit. Darius sprinted after him. The man bolted down a stairwell, yanking open a door leading to the underground parking garage. Darius followed, footsteps echoing in the empty space. The terrorist grabbed a waiting motorcycle and revved the engine. Not happening. Darius drew his gun and fired. The bullet shattered the rear tire. The bike skidded out of control, sending the terrorist tumbling across the pavement. Darius rushed forward, pinning the man down. "Who sent you?" The man coughed, blood staining his lips. "Langley's insurance." Darius tightened his grip. "She's done. And so are you." Sirens wailed as backup arrived. SWAT officers swarmed the garage, securing the suspect. Darius exhaled, standing over the unconscious terrorist. The hostages were safe. The city was in chaos, but they had won this battle. Still, something nagged at him. Langley had been too calm. This wasn't over. Not yet. Back at the courthouse, Blake was securing Langley for transport. Officers were loading her into an armored van, triple-checking her restraints. She sat quietly, smiling to herself. Blake frowned. "Something funny?" Langley's eyes gleamed. "You forgot one thing, detective." Blake raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" She leaned in. "You never asked who I was really working for." At that moment, his radio crackled. "Damn it. We've got a prison break, maximum security wing." Blake's stomach dropped. Who escaped? The answer sent a chill through his spine. Someone worse than Langley. Langley's smile widened. Blake cursed. This was far from over. The chaos of the city had reached a fever pitch. Explosions echoed in the distance while flashing lights bathed the streets in an eerie glow. In the armored van that carried Judge Langley in shackles, the tension was palpable. Behind her cold eyes lay the twisted satisfaction of a mastermind who had danced with chaos, and somehow, fate had turned against her. Darius Carter, still battle-scarred but resolute, surveyed the mayhem from his command post with the SWAT team at City Hall. The final act of this tumultuous saga was unfolding, and every heartbeat counted. Inside the van, Judge Langley's smug expression wavered for a moment as she listened to the officer's report. Multiple high-value targets escaped from the maximum security prison wing. "They're armed, dangerous, and linked to your network." The voice trembled with a mix of anger and disbelief. Langley's lips curled into a thin smile. "Karma," she whispered, echoing her earlier taunt. "Karma always catches up." Her voice was laced with irony, a final reminder of the twisted justice that had defined her career. Outside, Darius and Sergeant Blake coordinated the next phase. "We've intercepted chatter about a rendezvous at the abandoned industrial complex near the docks," Blake informed him. "That's where the remaining conspirators are regrouping, and likely, where Langley's final contingency lies." Darius's eyes narrowed. Every moment that ticked by was another chance for Langley's web of corruption to tighten. "Then that's where we'll end this," he declared firmly. "I'm taking a team. Blake, secure the perimeter and cover our exit." With the SWAT team and bomb squad in tow, Darius raced through the darkened streets toward the docks. The route was fraught with danger. Armed patrols from rogue factions had established blockades, and sporadic gunfire crackled in the distance. Yet Darius pressed on, his determination fueled by the weight of every slight, every act of injustice that had marked the long, brutal day. At the industrial complex, the scene was grim. Derelict warehouses loomed like tombs in the night, their broken windows reflecting the flicker of distant fires. The conspirators had gathered in a cavernous hall, where makeshift command stations were set up among scattered crates and rusted machinery. In the center, a table held a series of maps and blueprints. A lone figure, his face obscured by a hood, spoke in low, urgent tones about exposing the true power behind the corrupted judicial system. The whispers of conspiracy, of money laundering, and of deliberate chaos sent shivers down Darius's spine. Remember, Darius murmured to his team, our objective is to cut off the head of this snake. Once we have Langley in custody, everything else falls apart. The plan was simple yet perilous: storm the hall, neutralize the conspirators, and secure Langley's accomplices for interrogation. Darius signaled his team to fan out, taking cover behind shipping containers and rusted machinery. His senses were razor-sharp. He could hear the faintest footstep, the slight rustle of fabric in the shadows. Suddenly, the silence shattered as a volley of gunfire erupted from inside the hall. Conspirators had spotted the SWAT team's advance, and chaos ensued. Bullets ricocheted off metal surfaces, and officers dove for cover. In the midst of the melee, Darius advanced steadily, his trusty sidearm clearing a path through the confusion. Every shot he fired was measured, lethal, each one an act of retribution for every injustice he had endured. Amid the storm of violence, a figure emerged from the hall's far end. It was Judge Langley, flanked by two heavily armed guards, her eyes blazing with a mix of fear and defiance. The sight of her ignited something deep within Darius. Judge Langley, he called out, his voice resonant over the cacophony of battle. You belittled a black man in court, and now karma has come full circle. Today, justice is served. His words were not just a statement, they were a promise, a culmination of every slight, every betrayal. Langley's guards reacted instantly, exchanging rapid fire with Darius's team. The sound of gunshots blended with the desperate shouts of men and women fighting for their lives. In that chaotic instant, Darius locked eyes with Langley. For a split second, the courtroom taunts, the early humiliation, all flashed before his mind, a montage of injustice that now demanded retribution. His heart pounded, his resolve steeled as he advanced. Hands up, Langley. Darius ordered, his voice a commanding boom amid the roar of battle. You're done playing God. In response, Langley's eyes darted frantically, calculating an escape route, but fate had no room for such machinations. With a swift, calculated movement, Darius's team pinned down her guards, cutting off her escape. As one of the SWAT officers closed in, Langley lunged desperately for a hidden pistol. In the ensuing struggle, the officer's bullet found its mark. Langley staggered, her facade of control disintegrating as the magnitude of her actions caught up with her. Darius stepped forward, disarming her with a final, precise move. You will answer for every life you shattered and every trust you betrayed, he declared. The confrontation was raw and unyielding, a culmination of a day that had seen too many lives upturned by prejudice and corruption. As her hands were finally cuffed in unbreakable steel, the echoes of the phrase that had haunted Darius for hours rang out in his mind: Judge Belittles black man in court. 7 minutes later, karma hits when he arrests her. The bitter irony was complete. Outside, as the SWAT team secured the remaining conspirators and evacuated the wounded, Darius took a moment to look back at the industrial complex. The night was quieting, and slowly, the fires of rebellion began to fade, replaced by the cold, hard reality of justice served. In that moment, Darius felt a measure of closure, not merely for himself, but for every voice that had been silenced by injustice. He knew that while today's victory was monumental, the struggle against systemic corruption would continue. But for now, the scales had finally begun to balance. Sergeant Blake approached, nodding solemnly. It's over, Carter. Langley's network is dismantled. The people will see what happens when arrogance meets its match. Darius offered a wry smile as he holstered his sidearm. Justice, at long last, he replied. In that final, resonant moment, the weight of every hardship, every insult was lifted by the truth that had prevailed. As the dawn broke over the recovering city, the headlines would tell the tale, a powerful narrative of redemption and retribution, of a black man standing up against a system steeped in prejudice, and of karma, inevitable and unyielding, delivering its final verdict. Today, the message was clear: no one is above accountability, and every action, no matter how demeaning or corrupt, has its due consequences. The long, tumultuous journey had reached its end. Darius Carter had emerged not just as a survivor, but as a symbol, a beacon of resilience and justice. And in the fading echoes of the night, the whispered words of fate reverberated across the city, affirming that indeed, karma had struck its final, decisive blow. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey of justice and redemption. As the dust settles on a day where karma delivered its decisive blow and every act of injustice was met with retribution, we hope this story left you inspired and empowered. If you enjoyed watching this video, please hit that like button, subscribe for more riveting stories, and share it with friends around the globe. Your support helps us keep these powerful narratives alive. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.